And this is why I said that Final Fantasy VI is technically not the greatest Final Fantasy game of all time. The most recent game on this list, Bravely Default, is the spiritual successor to the Final Fantasy franchise. Since Final Fantasy is now going for a more hack-and-slash style gameplay, Bravely Default was made to recreate the iconic turn-based gameplay of the classic titles. And man, it's great to see this system back in action.
The first great thing to say about Bravely Default is the story. Unlike a lot of RPGs which sometimes take a long time for the story to get interesting, Bravely Default jumps into the story almost immediately. This makes the game much more intriguing as it doesn't take its time to get interesting, and thus you get into the game much more quickly. More RPGs really need to do this, though the story is admittedly rather generic, but it's still good.
But what makes Bravely Default really stand out is the gameplay. It plays like a classic turn-based Final Fantasy game and focuses heavily on job classes. However, what makes Bravely Default so unique is the Brave and Default system. How it works is that during your turn, you can use Default to charge up battle points. Once you have enough battle points, you can use Brave to attack multiple times or use more powerful attacks. It's a pretty unique system and not something you usually see in a JRPG.
Adding on to this is a feature that we smile upon, in-game system changing. By this we mean you can change the game's difficulty and encounter rate at any point in the game. This can help if the game's proving to be too easy or hard, or if you're just trying to get somewhere and don't want to encounter a crap ton of enemies on your way there. It's as if this game is the perfect gift to RPG players. It gives them everything they want, added on with some impressive graphics and a glorious soundtrack, which by the way, was done by the same people who did the famous opening theme of Attack on Titan. Man, those guys are getting around quickly. Also, good luck with the copyright, Maverick.
However, as much as Bravely Default is fantastic, it's not the highest Square Enix RPG on this list. Wait, what was that about copyright? If you guys know me and my love for the element of time, this was to be expected. Heck yeah, Chrono Trigger! As one of the big three SNES RPGs, the other two being Secret of Mana and Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger is widely considered to be the best of the three. And for good reason, as it's easily one of the best games in the entire SNES library, let alone out of the RPGs. Let's start with the gameplay.
Chrono Trigger, like Final Fantasy VI, is turn-based, but very much unlike Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger is an overhead RPG with real-time combat animations. In other words, instead of the characters just standing in a line, the characters actually move around in battle. Because innovation is fun! Also, since this game is entirely about time travel, the game takes place in multiple points of time, ranging from the prehistoric era to the Middle Ages to a post-apocalyptic future. And this leads us to the most impressive part of the game, that being the story.
We'll try to give as few spoilers as possible, but we can't promise anything. Anyways, the plot is about Chrono, a boy from the year 1000 AD, who was accidentally transported through time alongside his friends Marl and Luca. And upon discovery of the fact that the world is to be brought to a stage of ruin in the year 1999 by the alien creature Lavos, they find themselves on a time-traveling adventure to stop Lavos from destroying the world. Other than our three 1000 AD protagonists, the other playable party members are the Swordmaster Frog from 600 AD, the Cyber Warrior Robo from 2300 AD, and the all-powerful Chief Ayla from 65 million BC. These party members all have their own key traits that make them useful in battle and interesting characters in the story.
Also, this game is rather famous for being much deeper in emotions than most games at the time, which I would elaborate more on, except that would be a huge spoiler, so we'll say nothing. Instead, let's talk about the soundtrack. The music in this game is some of the best on the entire Super Nintendo. It's really impressive. And that's all I have to say about the game. If we elaborated any more, we'd end up spoiling the game.
And we wouldn't want that now, would we, Rabbit?
Don't worry, I won't spoil another Square Enix RPG on this list.
Okay, that's good. Wait a second.
Since my only knowledge of this game comes from what was featured in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, a majority of this segment shall be provided by my colleague. Go right ahead, Rabbit.
As the third installment in Nintendo's series of cult classic RPGs, Mother 3 is widely considered to be the best in the series. Either that or Earthbound, depends who you're asking. And you're probably wondering, why do we pick Mother 3 over Earthbound? Simple. Preference. Am I not allowed to have a preference? Is that a problem, son?
Rabbit, don't get distracted.
Right, sorry. So, let's start with the gameplay. Mother 3 plays very similarly to the previous installments of the series. Turn-based battle system, the ability to stop the damage counter and thus do less damage to your party members, a more suburban style feel with baseball bats instead of swords and foods instead of potions, those sort of things. But in all honesty, that's not what makes Mother 3 stand out. The biggest element that makes Mother 3 so popular, other than its history of being localized through a fan translation, is its dark and tragic story.
Rabbit, I know what you're thinking, and don't you dare!
Don't worry, Maverick, I won't spoil
Okay, good.
much.
Wait, what?
Mother 3 focuses on Lucas, a young boy whose mother is killed early on in the game by a chimera created by the Pig Mask Army, and his brother Klaus disappears very soon after.
Rabbit, this isn't a good idea.
As time goes on, Lucas joins a team of colourful characters, including his father Flint, his dog Boney, the Princess Kumatora, and thief-in-training Duster, as they journey to find the 7 needles needed to wake a dragon that shall either destroy or recreate the world, depending on who pulls it.
Rabbit, stop!
And since the Pig Mask Army, led by the mysterious Masked Man, is out to find the 7 needles as well, Lucas and his friends must find and pull the 7 needles before the Masked Man does.
Have you spoiled enough, Rabbit?
Haven't even started. As it turns out, the Pig Mask Army are actually commanded by Earthbound villain Porky Minch, who has become immortal since being a pawn of Geiger's. And as it turns out, the Masked Man's identity is actually that of...
Don't say another word, Rabbit. You've already spoiled enough of the game. Don't spoil that plot point too.
Alright, fine.
Anyways, as Rabbit said earlier, the game's dark story is one of the reasons that people praise it so much. I mean, this is a Nintendo game, for crying out loud! The creators of such light-hearted franchises like Mario and Kirby. Then they give us one of the most tragic stories this side of Shakespeare.
It's rumoured that writer Shigesato Itoi was out to make a very compelling plot with this game, and it succeeded. I mean, just look at the final battle against the Masked Man, who's actually...
And on that note, let's move on before Rabbit spoils some more plot elements.
Have you ever heard of Operation Rainfall? No? Well, allow me to elaborate. Operation Rainfall was a fan petition to get 3 Nintendo Wii exclusive RPGs to be localized in North America. While Nintendo was reluctant at first, they finally localized the 3 games, those being The Last Story, Pandora's Tower, and Xenoblade Chronicles.
Widely considered to be the modern-day Earthbound, Xenoblade Chronicles became a cult classic almost instantly. And when it was finally localized in North America, that popularity shot up like a supersonic rocket.
Now, I've talked about this game before in my top 15 Wii games, but with practically no knowledge of the game. Like, at all. However, jump forward a year later and that has most definitely changed, so this won't be as awkward.
Let's start with the story. Xenoblade Chronicles focuses on a large-scale war against the beings of 2 land masses, Bionis and Mechonis. When the mechanical beasts known as the Mechon unleash full-scale attacks on Bionis, a ragtag team of colorful characters find it in themselves to stop the Mechon threat, leading to even darker secrets about the 2 lands and their respective entities. At least, that's the story of the game in a nutshell. Going into detail would, here comes the repetitive word again, spoil the game, so we're not going to elaborate any further. So instead, let's talk about the gameplay.
Xenoblade Chronicles is an open-world action RPG, meaning that in battle, characters can freely move around and attack, similar to that of the Tales series. The battle system helps make this game timeless, as it's quite unique compared to the other RPGs of its time. Also, as mentioned earlier, the game is open world, and I mean MMO levels of open world. It's insane how big the worlds of Bionis and Mechonis are in this game. Because of this, Xenoblade's replay value is of immense amounts, meaning that playtimes of this game can spread into the hundreds.
Now let's move on to the presentation. This game is gorgeous, one of the best looking games on the Wii. And then there's the music. It's beautifully composed. And speaking of sound in the game, how about those British voice actors?
How long have you been in the Force?
It's so beautiful.
Yes. Yes, it is.
There's not much else to be said about this game. Xenoblade Chronicles is widely considered to be the best RPG of this generation, and it's not hard to see why. But think about this. This is only number 2. Now, the previous 9 JRPGs on this list have helped shape the RPG genre into what it is, through their gameplay, their stories, their soundtracks, their characters, and their expansive amounts of content. All of the candidates have portrayed these elements fantastically, but number 1 outmasters all these games immensely. It's what we consider to be the greatest JRPG of all time.
We are of course referring to Fire Emblem Awakening. Now, I have a feeling that some of you are asking if this counts as a JRPG, or if it should be classified as a strategy game. Well, the official genre of this game is strategy RPG, and as we said at the beginning of this list, any Japanese RPG counts, so Awakening meets the qualifications, and we couldn't be any happier about it.
Now believe it or not, Rabbit and I are not Fire Emblem fans. Before Awakening, the only Fire Emblem game I had played was Path of Radiance, and Rabbit had only played a bunch of the GBA titles. However, while our experiences with Fire Emblem before had been minimal, it made no difference to our experience with Awakening. The moment that we picked up this game, we were hooked, and for very good reason.
While it may not seem like it at first, Awakening actually makes a lot of changes to the Fire Emblem system that makes the game even better. Traditionalists might be a bit split on these alterations, but they're almost all for the best. For starters, the introduction of the avatar. In Awakening, you get your own completely customizable avatar, which may seem rather trivial at first, but the addition of the avatar helps a lot with the immersion in the game, combined with a mechanic we'll get to later. Also, the avatar is actually quite an interesting character, but we won't elaborate to prevent spoilers, but we'll just say there's a reason why the avatar is in Super Smash Bros. 4.
Speaking of characters, this is where Awakening really shines. The game has a large roster of playable characters, all of which have their own traits and classes that make them unique from each other. And depending on which support conversations you obtain, pretty much the entire roster experiences character developments. This brings us to the support system. In previous Fire Emblem games, the weaker party members were basically fodder for your enemies, but in Awakening, units can now pair up and take one spot, so you can pair weaker units with stronger ones for the sake of level grinding. But here's what's even better. When you pair up units enough times, you unlock support conversations between characters, which is where said character development kicks in. Plus, the support conversations are some of the best parts of the game, as the dialogue can be heartwarming, tragic, or absolutely hilarious.
Building off of this, some units can actually get S-rank support with each other, which in Awakening terms means marriage. And some units can even have children that become playable characters, and they have their own support conversations. Goodness Nintendo, how did you fit it all in this single 3DS cartridge? Next, we have the story. The game focuses on Chrom, the prince of a kingdom called Hliss, and the leader of a freedom fighting team called the Shepherds. At the beginning of the game, Chrom finds your avatar who joins the Shepherds as a tactician. And as the game goes on, wars erupt, lives are put on the line, and a plan to resurrect an age-old threat to the world begins to make way. It's a masterfully written story, filled with plenty of humour, intrigue, and even a lot of tear-jerking moments.
Also, how about that presentation and music? The presentation of Awakening is some of the best on the Nintendo 3DS. And the music? Do I even have to say anything? Just listen for yourself! But probably the best addition to Awakening that makes it stand out amongst other Fire Emblem games is the addition of Casual Mode. You see, in previous Fire Emblem games, when you lose a party member in battle, they're dead for good and cannot return unless you reset the game and retry the chapter. But keep in mind, some chapters can last over half an hour. This is why they consider to be the biggest turnoff to a lot of players. So in Awakening, this feature returns in Classic Mode, but it also adds Casual Mode, where defeated party members return after the chapter ends. This addition has helped make Fire Emblem Awakening one of, if not the most popular games in the entire franchise.
Really, what else can we say about this? Fire Emblem is the perfect JRPG. Any problems we have with this game are just nitpicks that are overshadowed by everything else in the game.
I'm the One-Winged Angel,
And this has been Rabbit Luigi.
and Fire Emblem Awakening is my all-time favorite game. Thank you for watching.
And we'll see you next time. Drive safely and take care.